let's look at buying groups. We talked about the entity where you have a parent-child company where in 99% of the cases, the parent company owns the children companies. Pacific Bell subsidiaries. Office Max subsidiaries and such. However, you also have situations where unrelated companies form a group and then negotiate better pricing. So those are known as buying groups. So a buying group is basically a list of companies that have grouped together to negotiate better pricing. So here I've gone to the More menu in the customer record and said, let's look at buying groups. So this company only belongs to one buying group. Now we can go over here to the CRM menu, maintenance utilities, and look at buying groups. We can take a look at the buying groups we have set up. So for example, here's high volume customers. And if we had some set up, they would be in here. Let me see if we have any. We've got one Canadian customer. And the one that we looked at in the customer record, test buying group. Okay, this buying group has 6 different companies in it. These companies are not related in a business sense. They just all got together and formed a buying group. This is very common with in the medical industry with doctors, where you'll form a buying group for multiple doctors' offices. It's used in the auto parts industry. It's a pretty common thing where you have multiple companies that group together. Buying groups can also be used if you're setting up certain special pricing arrangements and you want those special pricing arrangements to be valid for a number of companies that don't have any relationship to each other, either ownership or have banded together, but you want to treat them the same. In the case here, this data sample was from HemaQ. They wanted to set up their pricing for all of their Canadian customers, even though the Canadian customers are not related. And that has to do with special pricing. So we'll go into special pricing, which we do by going into the customer record and then looking at special pricing. Here's the special pricing set up for this customer. I can add a special pricing record. I can pick the item and say, okay, this bearing here, it's an active special price. We have a description, what currency we're dealing with, what quantity. The special price the customer gets may be quantity specific. They buy one, they get a certain price. They buy 5, 10, 15. Now the price they get can either be a fixed price or a discount from one of the price levels. You can set a maximum quantity, saying this is the maximum quantity they can buy at this special price. And you can set up a target quantity. And the target quantity is what goal you expect them to reach with this special price. And this tells you how many have been ordered at this special price and how many have been invoiced or shipped at this special price. And then you have valid dates where this special pricing is only valid for orders entered in that date range. An order entered on 12/31 that doesn't ship till January 10th will go out at the special price that it was entered at. Then you can have a contract where this special price is only valid for a certain contract. Now we can go back to the example I gave of JBL, Jet Propulsion, JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, they do contracts with all sorts of companies for research. So you may have negotiated with Boeing to provide product at a certain price and have a contract number, and JPL can buy under that contract because they're doing a project for Boeing. So you would put the contract number in here, and then when JPL placed an order, they would provide the contract number, which would go into the sales order, and then it would come up with this target price. Then you can have special pricing classes. Special pricing classes allow you to group special prices together for various reasons. Then we have a use class discount, and that's really exotic. We'll cover that in a different training session. Same with use price levels and use PQDS, which is price quantity discount system. Real exotic special training. In the special pricing record, you can also identify a rebate. Common in various industries are they give you a rebate for every item you sell. This was very common in the computer monitor industry, where ViewSonics would offer a monitor to one of their distributors. Let me give you a better example. Wareforce sells Microsoft products to large companies like JPL, Pacific Bell, State of California. And the copy of Excel might have a retail price or copy of Office of $500. And Wareforce's price from Microsoft is $200. Now, Microsoft says to Wareforce, every one of these that you sell, we will give you a $20 rebate, which would make their actual price $180. So it turns out they'll sell to the state of California a copy of Office for $195, which is $5 less than the price that they pay for it. But since they get $20 rebate after the fact, they end up making $15 on it. And some of these companies like ICG and Wareforce have one or two full-time employees that do nothing but deal with these rebates. There was a big lawsuit from the Federal Trade Commission and the SEC against ViewSonic because ViewSonic was using rebates to inflate their sales. They would sell a monitor to ICG for $200 and offer a $30 rebate so that they could report the sale as $200, and then they would report the $30 rebate as a marketing expense, where in reality they were selling the monitor for $170. And the SEC came down on them pretty hard because it was overinflating their sales, and being a public company, that was not considered good. Cost. This allows you to set a specific cost for this item when you're selling it, usually under a contract. It's similar to rebate, but you can have a situation where ViewSonic sells monitors to ICG, who then sells them to Dell. Well, ViewSonics and Dell have an agreement that they're going to sell the monitor to Dell at a certain price, and that price needs to have a lower cost than ICG normally buys it at. So you set the fixed cost for this item when sold to this customer under this contract number. Then you have instant display. What this flag does is say, if there is a rebate, show the value of the rebate during the target price and order entry. And then force use of this record. This is known as the force flag. What this means is, regardless of if the special pricing system comes up with a lower price, for example, a sale or any other price that's lower than this, don't use that special price. use this contract price because we've negotiated this price with the customer regardless of what other pricing we advertise for sales or promos. And this usually has to do if the product has any modifications, special shipping, special installation, where the price includes things that you don't want to discount. Then on the bottom, you have some catalog information. This is out of the catalog for this item, and room for a comment for this special price. So if you have special prices set up, you can also set them up by buying group. We just set one up for a customer. Let's go over to the catalog as a little bit of a detour. And look at special pricing management. Here are all of our special pricing records. And when we set one up, wants me to use this one to add them. Let's say we're going to do a buying group special price. We select the buying group, and then we can say, let's set up a special price for that buying group. And if you notice here in the company, it now says buying group, and the type is B. So by setting up special prices in the buying group, we can set up a special price, quantity, rebate, any number of things, contract over multiple customers without having to set up individual records for each customer. So that's our special pricing and buying groups. And then we talked about the zip code file for tax code calculation. So we'll take a quick look at the zip code file because it's related to customers. And here we have our zip codes. Now, zip code file works in the United States because the United States has fixed zip codes. In Canada, it works a little bit differently. In Canada, sales tax is set by province, and they've got 10 or 12 provinces because zip codes in Canada work like the English system does. Here in the United States, 33956 is for a geographic area laid out by the post office. A zip code in Canada or in England consists of 2 3-character strings, 1 2 3 XYZ, and it's much more specific. Every company in Canada or in England has its own unique zip code, and every 3 residential addresses have their own zip code. So if you have a zip code, that narrows it down to a company or 3 houses in England or Canada. So that's why you really can't use tax codes related to those type of zip codes. But fortunately in Canada, all the tax stuff is based on province. But if we look at a zip code here, we'll see that we have the zip code, the tax code for that zip code, city, state, county, the centroid of the center of it, latitude and longitude. And this information is downloadable from the Cove website. There's a zip code file that we update once a year from the post office that has this information in it. Then you have the city, state, and county rates if you have to break them down like in California. Or the rate here is 6%. And this tax code, USFL 0710, is generated by the web service. If you're maintaining your own tax code file, then you can call the tax codes whatever you want. If you use the web service to determine the tax code for an address. Then the web service will return to you a tax code along with the rate for that address, and we load the tax code that it returns into the zip code file. So you have it. So that's zip codes, parents. Oh, one other thing in the zip code file. Okay. Here we've got a field called demand location. And this is something that's of interest to the OFM folks, because Hank, I believe, is working on implementing that. The demand location tells you which warehouse should be defaulted for shipments to this location. So let's say your closest warehouse to 33956 is in Atlanta, then you would have Atlanta in here, and during order entry, as soon as the ship to address was determined, the order entry program would default to the location Atlanta, so that you enter the order for the location closest to the customer. Now, if you don't ship the goods from that location, when the sale is recorded in the weekly and monthly tables, the system will record not only where you sold the goods from, but it'll also record where you should have shipped the goods from, so that you can analyze where you have inventory in the right place and where you have inventory in the wrong place. If you're constantly having to ship widgets from Chicago to Florida because you don't stock them in Atlanta, the demand history will tell you we need to stock widgets in Atlanta. So I think that covers most of the customer stuff. Let's look at some of the pull downs to see if there's anything else that we want to talk about. We did buying groups. We're going to ignore loaners. The item comments we talked about. Credit cards. You can store credit card numbers with the customer record, so that on the website or an order entry, the credit cards don't have to be keyed. The credit card number is encrypted as a hexadecimal number using site-specific encryption.
Frank?
Yep.
Do you know if that's PCI compliant, this whole system?
PCI compliance is actually not software related. PCI compliance is system related. There's a document on our website called PCI Compliance, and that talks about what you need to do to be PCI compliant. And encrypting the credit card number is one item. Not storing the CCV code is another item. But all the rest of the stuff for PCI compliance has to do with internal procedures for the company. How often you audit. One of the typical things that's on the PCI compliance is the people that write the software cannot have access to your system.
I see.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and it also covers what PCI audits you have to do based on how many transactions or volume you do, what you have to do in a self-audit. There are, I think, 2 levels of self-audit, and then there are third-party audits and stuff like that. So the actual...
That's on the website?
Say what?
And that's on the website, this document?
Yeah, it's under our application notes as under PCI. So the software part of the PCI compliance is taken care of in our system. The rest of it is all site specific. For example, you have to have your servers in a separate room that are under lock and key, and people have to give blood samples before they go in there, and it's a tremendous amount of stuff for larger companies. For smaller companies, it's not quite as bad. Okay, cross-reference item. Cross-reference item is a company-specific thing also. For example, you'll get large customers like Amazon or Walmart who say, your item number 123, we're going to order, calling it 642A. So we're going to send you an order with an item 642A on it. And when you get that, you're going to ship us an item that you call 123. So the company cross-reference lets you set that up, where you can set up a record. For example, here, Company Bay Area Systems. This is our internal item number, description. This is the alternate item number. This is what the customer is going to send us. And then we can also have an alternate description, and you can have some defaults saying the customer wants this item shipped from that location, contract number, and such. So during EDI processing, as the 850 is imported, or in order entry, when an item number is keyed, the system uses a procedure called find item by something. And what it does is it goes out and looks for the item number based on the number you entered. If you have that item number, it uses it. It goes out and looks for that item in the alternate item number field. It goes out and looks for that number in the barcode field. And then it goes through the cross-reference file to check if they're global cross-reference numbers or if they're company-specific cross-reference numbers. A global cross-reference number would be used if you change an item number. So let's say you have item 123, but it used to be called item number ABC. And you have older customers that still order it by ABC. So the system will find it and say, oh yeah, ABC is now this new item number. So that's our cross-reference. Special pricing we talked about. And we can talk about safety stock for a moment. Safety stock is a little interesting. It has to do with contractual negotiations, where you may have a contract with Bay Area Systems saying, for you, since you are special, we will always have at least 3 of these Appleton books on hand. And again, a date range. So what this does is if you have a quantity of 10 on hand and somebody places an order for 8, it will only show that there's 7 available because 3 of them are reserved as safety stock so that you always have them on hand for this customer. Now, if you only have 4 on hand and Bay Area System calls and says, I need 2 of them, the system is smart enough to say, oh, I have 4 on hand, my safety stock is 3, so I have 1 generally available, but I can use that one and I can use 1 out of the safety stock, so I'll accept that order for 2. So safety stock is the culmination or the accumulation of the safety stock set up for each customer. You can either set up safety stock on a customer by customer basis, or you can set up safety stock and say, I don't want to sell the last 10 of these unless I manually allocate them. Because in the order entry system and catalog, the system normally allocates inventory automatically based on schedule date. However, you may say, these are in short supply, So when I get down to 10, I don't want to automatically allocate them because I want to keep them for my important customers. So at that point, the system would say 10 in stock, none available, and you would have to manually allocate the item to the sales order. Let's see what else we have off the customer. Buying group. Oh, I guess we'll hit loaners. If you remember when I talked about the default sales order type, one of them was loaner. So the loaner lookup basically lets you look up what you have shipped to the customer that still belongs to you as a loaner. And it just lists basically everything that you shipped out on loaner type sales orders. Going back to the customer management, let's look at the more menu on that. We looked buying groups, credit cards, special prices, safety stock, web portal rights, and attributes. So if nobody has any questions about customer related items anymore, we can head on to the catalog, which is the second leg of sales. No customer questions? Okay. So let's go over to the item catalog. Again, the catalog comes in as a list, a browse with all the regular behavior. As we scroll down, you can see we have different information in the extended item panel. Let's find an item. We'll zoom in on an item. Okay. The catalog inventory bin system has 3 layers. It has catalog, which describes everything you sell, whether you have it in stock or not. Inventory is where you track what you have in stock in multiple warehouses. And the bin table is where the stuff is in the warehouse. So those are the 3 layers of product. Each item is described by an item number, 3 descriptions. You can also have an extended description in the comment, and the extended description is 1000. So this lets you put in an extended description, and the extended description can be printed on orders, can display on your website, or anywhere you'd particularly like to display it. You have a product line, a group, and a biz line. These are ways of grouping and managing your products. The product line ties to the general ledger so that you can have sales and cost of sales and inventory hit the general ledger by product line. Group is completely free form, and business line is also completely free form. You have the manufacturer name and the manufacturer's item number. You have a type of product, then you have the special field. This is a 3-way flag. This indicates it's special order only, special order is not allowed, and may be special ordered. A special order is an item that you normally don't stock, and you only order that item when a customer places an order for it. So if it's an item that is special order only, that means you never stock it, you never write a general PO, you never receive it. If the customer places an order, the system generates a purchase order for the special order item. When the item is received, it doesn't go into stock, it does what's called a cross-dock transaction where the goods come in, they're sitting on your loading dock, they are immediately assigned to the sales order that's waiting for them, and a pick list is printed. So the goods do not have to be put away and then picked. If it's not a special order item, then you can't order it as a special order. And if it's blank, then it can go either way. The same is with vendorship. Vendorship we talked about at the customer level, but where it's not used as much, but on the item level, it's used frequently. If it's blank, that means you can either fulfill the order from stock, or you can have a vendor ship it to your customer or your customer's customer. If it's set to yes, that means you never ever stock this item, and it always gets shipped from your vendor directly to the customer. And if it's N, it means your vendor doesn't do vendor ships and you never vendor ship this item. It always has to come out of stock. Then you have the stock flag or the physical item flag. And for years, we've tried to come up with a better name for this. But this basically means if it's checked, it's a physical item that you buy and sell and can stock and warehouse. If it's a service or a miscellaneous charge, then you uncheck this and the system does not keep track of inventory. Now, it may be a physical item. For example, you may have different boxes and cartons in stock, which are physical items, but you don't keep track of them. So even if it's on a bill of material, it's not considered a stock item. So the system doesn't check if you have enough on hand or reduced quantities or anything like that. It just means it's an item we assume we have an infinite amount of. Perishable means that this item has a fairly short shelf life. Usually food products, medical products, certain products, for example, usually when they're perishable, they can't be returned because they have to be shipped out with cold packs in them or something like that. And if they come back, the item is no longer considered sellable because you don't know what temperature deviations have happened. The auto allocate flag we talked about a little earlier. Auto allocate means, and the normal state is checked. When an order comes in for an item, the system will look at the allocation window and say, okay, we have these, I'm going to allocate them to this order. The allocation window is the lead days that it takes to replenish that item. If you can get an item in 30 days, if it takes 30 days to get an item from the time that you place the order, then your allocation window is 30 days, so that anything that is going to be delivered within 30 days to your customer, you want to allocate. If it's an order for 60 or 90 days out, you don't want to tie up the inventory you have because you can get more to fill that order. Then the next one, generic item. A generic item are fairly rare in most industries, but you can set up an item that allows you to edit the description during order entry or purchase order entry. And that means every item you sell is going to have a different description that the salesperson entered. In the vast majority of cases, if it's a generic item, it's also going to not be a physical stock item because the costs of it are going to vary all over the place. So generic items are not used in most businesses, but in some cases you have to use them. Taxable indicates whether it's a taxable item. In most cases, the items you sell are either taxable across the board or not taxable, meaning they're a physical, tangible item that's you have to charge sales tax for in most areas, or it's not a physical, tangible item, it's a service or a fee where you don't have to charge sales tax. Now, if you're selling inside of the state of New York and you're selling products that have mixed tax rates, you have to use an additional file. For example, potato chips in New York are not taxable if it's a family size bag because it's considered food, but if it's an individual portion, it's considered a snack and it's taxable. Books are not taxable unless they're above a certain cost, in which case they're considered reference books and they are taxable. There are third parties that we can tie into with a web service that on an order line by order line basis will go out and determine whether or not this item is taxable in this tax district. Very few people use that. It's a very expensive service, and most of our customers don't have need of that, but it is available if you've got to deal with that. Allow back orders means, do you allow back orders on this item? If you don't allow back orders on this item, that basically means we're not going to sell this anymore. And when I run out of them, any orders for them, just close them. Show on website is pretty clear whether or not the item should be on your website. The auto hold flag means this item needs to be looked at for some reason every time it's sold, and it will automatically put that sales order line on hold whenever somebody enters an order for it. The offer warranty on order entry is used by sites that sell to end consumers, and when you have this checked, when the item is entered in order entry or on the website, it'll pop up a little thing asking if they want to buy an extended warranty on it. And then this button shows us the warehouses, and we'll get to that in a moment. Looking on the sales tab, we have price levels, list through A. These price levels are the ones pointed to by the customer record, saying this is the price level that this customer defaults to in order entry. The price that we default in order entry is called the target price, and the target price is calculated as the lowest price that is currently available to the customer and for that item. So if they're price level 3, or let's say price level 5, the price would default to $11,111. For some reason, price level 5 is higher than the rest of them. Probably because somebody put an extra 1 in there. So using price levels is the simplest way of setting up prices for your customers. You have the list price, which is normally your retail price. And then you have, in some industries, you have a MAP price, which is the minimum advertised price. And that's a price that you use to share with your dealers, saying, don't advertise it below this price. If you have custom price logic, the name of the custom price logic routine goes in here, and then during order entry or whenever a target price is calculated, the system doesn't use our normal pricing algorithms, and it goes out and executes the special pricing logic to determine the target price. Then you have the commission cost. The commission cost is a pure user definable data element. This is basically the price, the cost that you want to display to your salespeople. And usually it's considered a loaded cost. Maybe you buy an item where it has a cost of $100, but you've got $10 in inbound freight, $5 in duty, $5 in handling. So the item actually costs you $120, even though you're paying the manufacturer $100. So this lets you put $120 in the commission cost, so that's the cost that's used for margin calculations and the cost that's used for commission calculations. Then you have a minimum GPM. Minimum GPM is the lowest gross profit margin you can sell this item for before it goes on hold. If you enter an order for an item at a price that brings it below that, it gets a margin hold. And the last field below that is a discount code. The discount code is a free-form field, usually used by the custom price logic. Then in our costing group, we have the next cost. This is our best guess as to what this item will cost us the next time we buy it. We have a standard cost, and this is used by companies that use a standard costing accounting instead of average weight cost accounting. Then you have an assembly charge. This is basically what it costs you to put it together in-house. And then you can also have a landed cost, which is similar to the commission cost, but doesn't include any additional fees that you want to add on to there. Then on this tab, we have behavior. Availability date is the earliest date that this item can be sold. And then you have the sales process, which is normally blank, but you have two additional sales processes, whether this is an upgrade item or a subscription. And these are used primarily in the software business. Ship code lets you identify if there's any special shipping requirements. The maximum quantity field is used when you have fumble finger salespeople, where you say, we normally don't get orders for these above a couple of them. So if somebody enters an order for more than 7 or 7 or more, I want to put it on hold and take a look at it because they've probably fumble fingered something. So we don't want to process an order either over a certain value or over a certain quantity for an item without somebody looking at it. Then we have our sales order lead days. This is how many days we tell the customer it takes to fulfill the order. And this is our purchasing lead days, which is how long it takes us to replenish our stock. Then moving on, you can have separate price lists. Instead of having price levels, you can have multi-year price lists with different pricing. This is for companies where the product's pricing changes on an annual basis. For example, one of our customers, Max Lure, they issue new pricing on their new pricing takes effect on the 1st of September every year. For most customers, however, some customers, it doesn't take effect till January 1st. So this allows you to have overlapping price lists between different customers. And then you have your price list prices, which are tied to the price lists. Then we have the materials tab. The material tab describes attributes about the item, what the barcode item number is, an alternate item number, an exchange item. The exchange item is used that when the customer buys something, they have to give you something back. For example, they come into your store and they buy a starter for your car. They have to return a starter. Otherwise, they get charged for for not having an exchange item. You have the maximum allocatable quantity. So up here, you have the allocate flag. So you can say auto allocate, but I don't want to allocate more than a certain amount automatically. Example of that, Cy Kessler, they sell batteries. They have thousands of batteries on hand, and they sell both to manufacturers where they may sell 50,000 of a particular battery item, but they also sell batteries to jewelry stores like Zales and K Jewelers, where they sell them 1, 2, 10 at a time, of course at much higher prices. So the max allocate quantity lets them set something and say, regardless of how many we have, don't allocate more than 10,000 at a time. Or they can set it as a percentage and say, I don't want to allocate to any particular order more inventory than will take my on hand below 20%. So it lets you avoid wiping out your stock by one customer and then having your other customers unhappy with you. Similar to safety stock, but a little less labor. Seasonal code lets you identify a code for seasonality of an item. Danger code lets you put in the hazardous goods number if it happens to be a hazardous good. For example, lithium batteries you have to identify, and they can't be sent by air. So anything that has a danger code, the system won't let you send it UPS red, UPS blue, FedEx overnight. It has to go by ground, and it will print on the shipping label in big letters the danger code. Most of our customers don't have that, but in the case of Kessler, they ship lithium batteries, so they can't go by air. Then we've got some more item information. The assembly code indicates whether it's a finished good or a kit or a bundle. Now, if you're not manufacturing, finished, kit, and bundle are the items that you would normally use. A finished good is something you take off the shelf and you ship, pick and pack. A kit is, in the case of OFM, it's a chair that consists of a base, 2 arms, and a back, I think. Rob, what pieces go into a chair?
It would be like the actual chair itself, and then the arms. So the kit would be like, you know, finished good items themselves, basically. Some would be components. So like it would be like a chair, which could be sold as a finished good, and then maybe an accessory to arms. And then so we put those together, and then maybe a drafting kit, and then that would be the kit.
Okay, so a kit like Rob said, a kit consists of multiple finished goods that are assembled or packaged together at the picking level, so they can be sold individually or grouped together to be sold as a kit in order to offer different pricing. Then a bundle is similar to a kit, except the bundle is immediately exploded on the sales order. When you enter a kit, it would be chair kit 1, and it's one line on the sales order. If you enter chair bundle 1, it then explodes itself to a chair, 2 arms, and a headrest, for example, so that they can be shipped individually from different warehouses, possibly. So based on different customer needs, you either use chairs or bundles, kits or bundles. Size is clear, color is clear, format, just different description things, sales class, sales detail, sales category. Authorized indicates that this is an item that customers have to be authorized to buy. And then if that's flagged, the system goes out and checks the authorization file table to make sure that the customer is authorized to buy this. Then moving over on the materials tab, we have packaging. This is the unit of measure, the smallest unit of measure that you sell this item in. Most cases, it's inches. But if you're an office supply store, you may not sell pencils or rubber bands as eaches, you may sell them as a carton. But in most cases, it's going to be eaches. Then unit of measure 2 is the next unit of measure up. So for example, a carton has 6 eaches in it. A case has 24 eaches in it. Okay, I don't have pallet on here. So during order entry, it's going to come up and let you enter either eaches or cartons or cases, and it will then automatically explode it for you. If the customer says, I want 6 cartons of this, it's going to explode it into 36 eaches. On the pick list, if you enter an order, let's say for 40 units of this, the pick list will print 40 units, and then underneath it, it's going to say that is 6 cartons and 4 eaches, or 1 case and 2 cartons and 4 eaches. So it'll tell you what the units of measure are so you can pick it more easily. During purchase order entry, your vendor may only sell it to you in cases. So you place an order for 10 cases, which is 240 eaches, and then during the receiving process, it's going to convert those 10 cases into 240 eaches, because the quantity that we keep in inventory is always the lowest unit of measure. This tells you what our default purchasing unit of measure is and what our default order entry unit of measure is. Then we also have a barcode for unit of measure 2, 3, and 4, because for receiving or for picking, let's take in the case of a liquor store, you may have a 6-pack of beer, which is going to have a different barcode on it than a single bottle of beer. So if you scan the 6-pack barcode, point of sale is going to do a find item by something. It's going to say, oh, this barcode indicates it's a 6-pack, and use the appropriate price for that. It lets you store the pallet size for, well, one to the left. It shows how many are on a pallet. In this case, let's say there's 144 on a pallet. Lets you store the pallet size. Let's say it's a 24 by 36 inch pallet. And it'll say the pallet has 12 layers of 12 on it. And this is really used in the area of wholesale grocery distribution and stuff, where they're having to figure out how much will fit in a truck, how much will fit on a pallet. Some distributors will only sell pallet quantities of stuff based on the pallet sizes. So we got to tab 2 on the materials.
Frank, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Okay, on one of the problems we face in liquor business is what they call a seasonal beer, where the manufacturer use the same barcode for 2 different products on different parts, in spring and winter. Is there any support for that in the inventory? Is there any way we can identify 2 products with the same barcode?
Well, you use the cross-reference file where you would put in the 2 base items, both having the same barcode, and then based on the seasonality, you set one inactive.
Okay. Yeah, but then there could be some times where the 2 kind of overlap each other. So
Well,
you may have both seasons in at the same time.
Well, then you have mixed stock. If you have 5 bottles left over from spring, and you're now in the summer and you get 10 bottles, you now have 15 bottles in stock with the same barcode number.
So what happens when you scan it?
Well, when you scan it, it's going to reduce the inventory of whatever the current one is. The other choice that we would have is to set some